Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside Out Smile. I'm your host, Dr. Amber Q, and I did start recording this episode outdoors, but I got distracted and I'll explain why. So here I am back in the studio, and which is basically my living room. But anyway, let's just get into it. The weather has been amazing. And it's been so sunny and beautiful in London. We'll discuss the riots another day. But I just wanted to discuss, life is just so interesting. So I'd gone for a walk the other day and it was stunning. You see the sunlight just playing on the water. And just, when you get trees and branches and greenery by the water as well, and just the variation in sort of the different hues of the greenery, but also the sunlight that's playing on it. It's just so beautiful. One of my favourite spots is a place where I'll go and sit essentially on a tree. And no, this is not me climbing trees, although I used to do that, but it's sitting on this gorgeous, it's like nature's bench. And there were loads of Canadian geese. Shout out to anyone who's listening in Canada. And these two young boys came over. It was so funny. So it was such a lovely day. And, it was just so gorgeous. Now imagine yourself in a beautiful green park in London. Now, I was making a joke about planes, trains and automobiles because you get the sound of the trains going by, planes going overhead, and the occasional traffic as well because, hey, we are in London. But those sounds are slightly at a distance. So, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. You can hear dogs barking, kids playing. And most of all, when you're by the water, you can hear the ducks, the geese, and dogs who splash in the pond when they're not meant to, especially when they're sort of ducklings and cygnets and goslings around. So these two young boys came along. They were so sweet. They had a little bucket of duck feed or bird feed, and they started to feed the Canadian geese. There were a lot of Canadian geese. I'm sitting in the corner on the tree, and these boys are really making me laugh. Like, so hilarious. And why were they hilarious? Because, they were hilarious because they were just lovely. They were young, wholesome boys, and they were trying to feed the ducks. And the geese, ducks and geese. And then the Canadian geese, because there were so many of them, some of them started to get out of the water. And it can be slightly worrying when they're walking towards you. And so the young boys were kind of getting a bit worried and kind of moving back and forward. So there's this kind of to and froing. And then one of them was trying to feed a goose with his hand. And we ended up just having a little chat where I was laughing along with them. And I was saying, have your hand out really flat. And they were just so lovely. That actually reminded me of my godsons. And my godsons are just adorable. I mean, honestly, well, for a start, my friend and her husband are just gorgeous. When you've got a gorgeous couple, you're going to have handsome kids. So my two godsons, and I am deviating slightly, but there is a reason for this, and I will let you know in a moment. They're just so amazing. They're really sporty, artistic. They've been brought up so beautifully. They're such wonderful boys, as well as being handsome and they're just amazing. And these two boys were reminding me of my godsons. And incidentally, they were on holiday, and I had some really great photos that my friend sent me. Anyway, I know their mum is listening, so shout out to their mummy, who is a brilliant mum. Anyway, so back to these boys who were feeding the ducks and the geese. And, we ended up just laughing, and they were just so lovely. And I said, as I left them, I said to them that it was really lovely to meet them, and I hope that they had, kind of a lovely rest of their day. And then I moved on to pick berries, which which actually is always a highlight for me. So while these boys carried on feeding the birds and the ducks, or the ducks and the geese, and whilst I went off to pick berries, which is one of my most favourite things to do in the summer, is to kind of walk in the sun, pick berries, pick fruit, stain my hands. But while my godsons are doing amazing things, paragliding, etc., just, I don't know, swimming in the ocean and the sea, etc., and just all their adventures that they were doing on their holiday, their godmum was basically just walking around picking berries. And the reason I'm telling you this is because when I was looking at the boys, I was thinking of all the times that I'd been to the park as a child, when I used to climb trees, when I would come to the park with my friends, and then much later on when I came to the park with my poodle for many, many years, chasing my poodle. Wow, I was super fit then. And the thing is that I always knew, I'd always heard that time is really elusive and youth is wasted on the young, all those sayings. And I feel as if I was quite aware of time and being young in a sense. And I did try to cherish it. But even so, time has just gone by so quickly. And when I was watching the boys and when I was thinking of my godsons as well, I was thinking about how young they are. And I was thinking that, my gosh, time flies by so quickly. Even though we try to hold on to it or we try to just enjoy it, cherish it, it still whizzes by really quickly. And I guess that's the message of today's podcast. Whatever age you're at, it doesn't matter if you're 72 or 7 years old, although I don't think you'd be listening to this if you were 7 years old. But anyway, let's just say you were 12 or something. The point is that you are never going to be as young as you are right now. And that time does really fly. And although it's great living life, experiencing life, and even looking back on life, it's wonderful. I think that we just never really appreciate how quickly time passes. And I think that's just the one thing that I'd like to say today, is that just savor the time that you have. Now, of course, there are people going through unspeakable horrors in Palestine. So, I don't know, that's the caveat, I guess. But is that even a caveat? Because if they're alive, they're suffering. But, you know, I heard somebody say, an Islamic scholar say, that the portals of heaven must be open above Gaza, and in a way that there are, you know, in a way that, you know, cannot exist anywhere else on earth. And I know that may sound strange to some, because obviously the conditions there are hellish. But that's another story as well. But in any case, the point that I'm making is that time doesn't stand still for any of us. It's constantly evolving. And the time that we have with family, with friends right now, it's never going to come back. Or it's certainly not going to come back on this plane of reality. And indeed, there's a verse in the Quran and a little set of verses, a surah, a chapter, about man sort of being in loss in terms of time. You know, that man is in a state of loss with regards to time, because we're essentially in a race against time, aren't we, on this earth, unless obviously we're doing what we're meant to do, i.e. following our purpose. But that's another story as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is just cherish the moments that you have on earth, because we don't know how long they're going to last. And just to be appreciative of that, because no matter how much we try to hold on to something, it will just slip through our fingers in terms of time. And until the next episode, let's all create connection and not just change lives, but save lives.